This is the son of Harless, and I'm listening to I Am Salt Lake podcast.
Showcasing local talent, professionals, and everyday people making Salt Lake City what it is today. It's time for another episode of the I Am Salt Lake podcast.
Recording out of beautiful downtown Salt Lake City, Utah. Welcome to episode 58 of the I Am Salt Lake podcast. My name is Chris Hollifield. Welcome to my show. Welcome to the podcast. IamSaltLake.com is the website for the podcast where you can listen to all the previous episodes. I got all the contact information there. You can download the episodes. Got links for Facebook, Twitter, voicemail, email, as well as links to iTunes and Stitcher Radio so you could subscribe. That way you do not miss a single episode of the show. Hey, on today's show, I had a really great conversation with Sam Cosby from Ellisbeetle Entertainment. Sat down, found out all about Ellisbeetle Entertainment, kind of how that started, some of the musicians, as well as authors that are part of that collaboration, Ellisbeetle Entertainment. I put all the links if you want to go to IamSaltLake.com/episode 58. That way you can get in touch with him and Ellisbeetle Entertainment, find out what they're all about after listening to this interview, like I said, with Sam Cosby. A few events that I want to mention really quickly. April 20th is Record Store Day. You're going to want to make sure to head on over to Gray Whale in Taylorsville. Slug Magazine and Gray Whale in Taylorsville are having a great event going on April 20th. They got some music. Wildcat Strike is playing Golden Sun Beachmen and Breakers. Starts at noon. The Lewis brothers will be there. Their food truck serving up their tasty food. Again, that's noon until about 5 p.m. there in Gray Whale in Taylorsville for Record Store Day. So make sure to check that out, April 20th. Also, this upcoming Saturday, you're going to want to check out Suicidal Tendencies. They're playing at in the venue, saltlakeCityconcerts.net. You can find out all of the information about all of the upcoming concerts, as well as the Suicidal Tendencies shows if you still need to get tickets for that. I think that's going to about do it. Call us up on the voicemail line, 385-202-5926. If you got any events you want to promote or anything you want to mention or to just say hello, I'd love to hear from my listeners. I'm going to jump right now into that conversation that I had with Sam Cosby from Ellisbeetle Entertainment. Thanks for listening to the I Am Salt Lake podcast. Why don't we just start at the beginning, kind of introduce yourself and what it is you do, a little bit about Ellisbeetle Entertainment. Okay. Let's just start at the beginning.
All right. My name is Sam Cosby. I'm the CEO and owner of Ellisbeetle Entertainment. We are a record label, book publisher, publish books, ebooks. We also publish audiobooks, so we're an audiobook publisher as well. In fact, Ellisbeetle Entertainment it distributes, and we have another company that's called Literature Aloud, which is the audiobook company. But we have international distribution. We just recently became a record label, so we're signing, in the process of signing artists and different things of that nature. And we don't necessarily lean towards one genre or the other, and a lot of that's because of my background with music and kind of the way I view the world and the way I see the world musically and artistically. And so I'm a bassist, I'm an author, so I write music, I play it.
So you do it all.
Yes.
Any form of. Now, are you you're an artist as well?
No, I'm not. Unfortunately, I'm not an artist, but anything pretty much musically or as far as
print or
something like that or whatever, creating a storyline and or creating a universe and that kind of thing. I'm really good at.
So when did Ellisbeetle Entertainment? What inspired it, and when did it start?
Ellisbeetle itself is a character in a series that I created. Originally, it was entitled The Adventures of Lars and Ellisbeetle, which was started back in 1997. Okay. I was in a situation where I had my first son, his name was Lars, and he wanted me to read him a story. So we were at the Barnes & Noble in New Jersey, so I went over to get a book, and he says, "No, tell me a story." And I'm like, "Look, all these books on the wall, children's section, why don't I just read a book?" He said, "No, just tell me a story." And I started to tell him just make up a story. So I said, well, there's this beetle, this blue beetle, and there's this yellow dragon, and there's this purple rabbit. And I started, kind of creating a story to just entertain them. And the story went from the Barnes & Noble, to the car, and then from the car all the way home. And then the next morning he woke up and wanted to hear more stories. And so that's when I noticed how intrigued he was with it. And so then I came up with an idea. I said, well, maybe I should write a song that goes along with some of the stories that I'm telling him. And that's how it started. That's how the idea of Ellisbeetle kind of started.
So before that, you never did any kind of writing? You never really...
No, I was, before that, I was in the Marine Corps. So I was in the Marine band stationed in Quantico. And so, I was a bass player for the Marine band. And then... And so this is like after I got out. And then, so I've been playing music ever since I was 14.
Okay.
Between the ages of 14 and 15. My mom called me. She was on a cruise ship, and she called me and told me that I needed to pick a career right then.
While you were at 14 years old, she told you this?
Yeah, because so my mom was a pastor. Okay. So I'm a pastor's kid and whatnot. And she was also an entrepreneur, very progressive-minded woman. And she just said, look, you need to pick a career. You're going to be a bum the rest of your life if you don't pick one now. And we were playing Super Nintendo, so it was like, well, okay.
Well, that's a lot of pressure on a 14-year-old kid,
she just,
right?
And so I was like, okay, just tell me what to do. And so she said, well, maybe you should play music. And I said, okay.
Which is odd of parents to suggest, because usually they look at musicians as not making a lot of money.
Exactly.
Or something like that.
And so I said, okay. Well, and the relationship that I had with my mother was, I would just do, if she said jump, I would just jump. If she said do this, do it. If don't do that, I wouldn't do it, and that kind of thing. So that relationship with her was pretty, it's very wide in some ways and very narrow in other ways. And so I said, okay, I'll play music. And she said, what instrument do you want to play? And I said, I'll play drums. She said, no, too many drummers in the world. Play bass. There's not enough bass players. And so that week, it was within the next day or so, I had a bass in my hand. And so I just kind of picked it up and started kind of trying to figure out things. And then a little bit after that, I had a lesson from a guitar player, which I think that was, which really worked out in my benefit. So I had one lesson with a guitar player, and then that Sunday I started playing in church.
And was this here in Utah? Was it?
No, this was in Indianapolis, Indiana.
Is that where you were born and raised?
I was actually born here.
Oh, okay.
I was actually born here. My mother had a church here, which was Faith Temple Pentecostal Church.
Okay.
She started a church here. She was from Indiana. She came here, started a church, and then.
Sorry, just kind of jumping around. Just
no, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay.
Follow the story.
Yeah, it's okay because we're probably doing a lot of that. So so she started the church here, and then so I grew up here mainly, which was in the 70s. But just so you know, I'm not older now. Like I stopped getting older at one point. So
how does that work out?
I worked it out.
You worked it out, right?
But and so we grew up here, and of course, it was a very low population of African Americans here in the state, like a lot less at that time. Yeah. And then, so we grew up, with a very diverse background. I had, of course I had my mom, and then we had a white nanny.
Yeah.
So it was so we had these two different sides of the coin where we could go out and people would call us, nigger and all these other different names that they can come up with
here in Utah.
Wow. At that time it was really bad. In some ways it's a little better now.
That's good to hear.
Yeah. And so I think, different people, I think as society moves forward, people's mentalities, that's kind of like the old guard dies off.
Yeah.
So we had this thing where we had these two different people. So we grew up in a kind of a diverse mindset. And of course, we just didn't have African Americans in our church. We had we had Hispanics and that, so we had different races of people in our church. So we kind of grew up with a diverse mindset. Then she went to Indiana to start another church. And then so she was spending more time there. So she, of course, wanted her children to be with her there. Mm-hmm. And so that's how I ended up in Indiana. And so that's where she just decided I needed to pick a career, which I'm glad she did, because I'm still doing what I do.
So what brought you back to Utah then?
So once I got out of the Marine Corps, and I was in the Marine Corps, I was married at the time. And so that relationship started to end. That relationship started to end, and my mother had passed. And so I just made the decision to come here just for a little while to figure out what I was going to do next. I had no intentions of ever moving back to Utah because of the experiences I had when I was a child and as I got older. So I had no intentions of ever kind of putting myself putting myself in that type of environment, where, there was a ceiling, and that ceiling was like 20 years behind the time. And so you couldn't really, so there was always a constant fight or struggle. So came back here and then got back here, and then I ended up some things, just kind of started figuring some things out, and I ended up just kind of staying here.
Utah does that to you. It sucks you in and it
sucks you in. It'll keep you. Yeah. And it's like, it's a pretty place and it's my home. So there were some factors in there. And of course I just decided to go ahead and stay here and, see how things panned out. So, which I'm glad I did stay here as well too. So
what year? So after the Marine Corps, you moved back here.
Yeah. So after the Marine Corps,
approximately when was that about?
Well, I got out of the Marine Corps and then I moved to New Jersey.
Oh, okay.
We were living in New Jersey at the time, and then I think it was around 2000, around 1999, 2000. It was in that place, where we were all going to die. Because the year 2000.
Y2K, yeah.
Yeah. And so that's when, it was around that time when I came back.
So back to playing bass.
Okay.
Do you have any, is your family, any of a musical history in your family at all? Or with your mom pushing you to be a musician?
Well, yeah.
What was the reason behind that?
Coming from the black church, which is very musical, if you look at how black churches and how they, kind of have progressed. It's always been very musical.
Yeah.
And so, I have other people in my family that are musical, some a little bit more better than others, that kind of thing. So it's kind of, but it's not, I wouldn't say that it's it's a primary, fixture in our family as music is concerned. For me, it was, I clearly had a gift for playing music and playing bass. And so at one point I didn't realize it, but I was actually mimicking my mother. My mother was a perfectionist, and so she was always striving to be better as a human being and with church and everything that she was doing. So I started mimicking her in that way, and so I started kind of moving forward musically. And it was in high school. We started a band. The high school band kind of thing.
Like a garage band?
Kind of like, but we were actually playing in church and performing all the time. And the highlight of that period was I was a junior in high school and we opened up for Al Green.
Oh, wow.
So that was like a, big deal for me at the time.
Still is a big deal.
Yeah. And so that was the kind of thing where I had gotten to the point I decided I wanted to take music seriously and I wanted to do it for a career, and I needed to figure out how to do that. Other than being, just like a bum and what they, how people try to perceive musicians are lazy, they're bums and they don't make a lot of money. And money was never the issue, but I didn't want to be living, on the side of the road with a guitar.
You wanted to make something out of your life.
Yeah. And I knew that there was a way to do it because it wasn't like the MTV kind of idea that I had. I knew other musicians that were doing well. Mm-hmm. And they were living well, but I just didn't know how they were doing it. But of course, then I was in high school, so it wasn't time for me to figure that out.
So are you're self-taught then with the bass guitar, or did you take lessons or a few lessons?
I would say that there, in the beginning stages, it was mostly self-taught, playing by ear. Later on, I attended the University of Utah. I went there, and unfortunately, I didn't learn very much there. There were some race issues with some of the staff there, and so I was running.
This was back in the 70s.
No, this is the 90s.
The 90s.
Yeah, we're in the 90s.
We're in the 90s, and they're still.
Let's see. Yeah, I graduated in 80. Yeah, it was the 90s. Yeah,
and there was still that going on.
Yeah. Some of the professors and different things of that nature, and so it was the real turning point for me. Was Branford Marsalis, his trio was coming to the university to perform. And I had been listening to Branford for, a long time. Of course, I didn't understand everything they were doing musically at the time, but I listened to it a lot. And I wrote him a quick letter and told him that what my situation was, and I wanted to talk to him when he came. And fortunately enough, when he did come, he ended up talking with me and spending quite a bit of time with me. And that's what started me on the path of I was already searching for more knowledge about music, but he kind of steered me in the way I should go about getting that, obtaining that music. And then another person that was very instrumental was Bob Hurst, who was a bass player at the time. Bob Hurst was on The Tonight Show for many years with Jay Leno.
Okay.
And he had told me, he says, I said, what should I do? And he said, well, listen to Miles Davis' Kind of Blue and learn everything on it. And so I said, okay. And he says, when you get finished, he gave me his number and said, call me and I'll tell you what to listen to and what to learn from next. And so I listened to that album for about 2 years straight. So I wouldn't listen to any radio. I would watch TV or go to a movie or whatever, but outside of that, that was constantly playing all the time. So if you came over during that period, that's all you heard at my house.
Was Miles Davis.
Was Miles Davis Kind of Blue over and over. And then I would just kind of pick through, started learning things with my bass and whatnot. And it took me a couple of years. And then I contacted Mr. Hurst back and he said, okay, well, listen to this album. And I don't think you'll call me back after this. And I was like, and it was the next album after Kind of Blue. And I went and got it, threw it in. And when I started listening, I mean, the first like 8 bars, I was like, my mind was open musically, but yeah, it totally blew me away. And I never called him back again because I was on the path. So
on the right path,
I was on the right path.
Needed to be on.
And then the Marine Corps, and then in the Marine Corps, of course, you go through a school of music there. And I learned, I would say maybe like a 2-year or 3-year course in a regular college. You learn it in 6 months in the military. And so it was good for me because I learned, not only did I get the information, but I learned how to learn. So I learned instead of just kind of cut the corners and get straight to the meat of things. Yeah. And I think that's where the discipline, that's where the discipline came in, the musical discipline of being a musician and the stamina of having to be a musician for the duration or the long term. And so the Marine Corps did that for me.
And where were you stationed? You might have mentioned that. Where were you stationed?
Stationed in Quantico, Virginia. And it was a crazy road to even get to the band. In boot camp, one of the drill instructors found out that I was in the band. The recruiter said, "Don't tell him you're in the band. Don't tell him you're in the band." So, we'd be in the squad bay, and they say, "Recruit, what is Recruit Cosby here to do?" And I said, "Recruit Cosby's here to kill, sir." It's just that whole thing. Recruit Cosby's here to kill, sir. And that played good for about 3 weeks. Yeah. And someone from 8th and I called, or someone had called and said, "Hey, whatever you do, make sure he doesn't hurt his hands." Why? Well, he's in the band. And that's when that drill instructor started playing some pretty hellacious games with me. So we started, what they would do is he would dry shave me with other people's razors.
Wow.
And just to make a long story short, from that, I ended up through that duration of that happening and getting other people's like staph and, all that infection and stuff. I ended up like being in a coma for a week and I died 4 times from that. Yeah.
From dry shaving.
From dry shaving and that kind of thing. So it's crazy, but you
learned a lot, I bet.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I learned a lot of good and I learned a lot of bad too, but I've been able to kind of persevere and steer my way through it. And through that process of everything, when I came back here to live and I continued on with the Lars and Ellisbeetle adventure series kind of thing, I ended up seeking out more knowledge because that's the way that I am. So I started out with Bill Cosby first because I figured he did kid stuff. So I would just and I didn't know anything about the business, Green, but I was trying.
Now, is there any relation?
No
you
relation.
And Bill Cosby? Okay,
no
okay.
Relation,
just share the same last name.
Yeah. And so I went and I was trying to figure out what, how can I develop this and what, because I didn't have anyone like showing me anything. Yeah. So I wanted to know how I could develop it and get it to a point where it was like I could have a series, TV series and books and all that. So I started out with Bill Cosby, and then a little bit after I started trying to contact Bill Cosby, because I have no fear, then I started trying to contact George Lucas.
Well, you went right to the top.
Yeah, I have no mindset for anything. I don't see barriers, and even if you put them there, I tend to try to find a way around that barrier if I need to get the information.
Yeah.
And so so I was going through the process of trying to contact Lucas, and I was making phone calls and doing that kind of thing. And I wasn't overbearing, but I just kept being persistent. And finally, I got his secretary, and his secretary said, well, I left a message, and she said, okay, she was really nice. She said, okay, I'll let him know, whatever. She was like, who are you? And it was Sam Cosby. Like they're supposed to know me.
Like, what up?
Yeah, I'm Sam Cosby. Yeah, I have some questions. I have children. I have questions. And so I didn't get a call back. And so I called, and, I got a voicemail, and I figured, let me just, because I never wanted to be overbearing. So I said, got the voicemail. I said, let me call back one more time. So I called back, and she answered the phone. She said, oh, Mr. Lucas just left, and he's on his way to a meeting or whatever, and that kind of thing. So I said he was on his way to a meeting, and he should be back. And she kind of, at such time, and I'll give him the message, and if he calls you, that kind of thing. I said, well, if he's going to a meeting, he's coming back. And so, and I knew he was he sat on some nonprofit, boards or whatever. So I just went on the internet and found what board he was on. And then I just called the place just, by a chance. I called and I said, is Mr. Lucas available? And they said, well, who's calling? I said, tell him it's Sam Cosby. And they were hold for a moment. And then I was really nervous. I'm like, what? He's going to get on the phone? What's going to happen? The person came back, and she said, Mr. Lucas said, call his secretary. And, in other words, she had the information, whatever information he was going to give me, just call his secretary. So I said, okay, well, tell him, thank you so much. And I called the secretary back, finally got her, and she said, Mr. Lucas would, if he could, he would talk to you. It must be, you must have a really, really good idea, because you're really persistent about talking with him. But she said, unfortunately, he's already working on a children's series.
So work on another one.
So, well, he's already working on a series. So just, kind of keep an eye out for that. It wasn't until years later that it was actually the Clone Wars that he was working on.
Wow.
And so he said, keep an eye out for that. So that's what she told me. So that's what I did. So I just started watching the Clone Wars and started learning a lot from that too. So yeah, so that's, and the whole Bill Cosby thing ended up, his secretary told me, or his agent, she said, legally they can't talk to you because, they don't want to get sued and different things of that nature. And she said at that time, she says, Bill Cosby's already working on a children's series. And that ended up being Little Bill.
Okay.
That he's working on. So
I mean, yeah. but how tripped out would you have been if George Lucas really came on the phone?
I would have dove in.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, no, I would have dove in because I wanted
that?
Because I wanted the information. As a kid, Star Wars came out 77, as a kid or whatever. I was a part of that whole thing.
Absolutely.
And so I always used to wonder, like in the cantina scene, I always wanted to know about the other characters. It's weird. I'll tell you this story real quick.
Yeah, let's do it.
So my stepdad ended up getting a bootleg copy of Star Wars.
Really?
Like before on VHS, like one of the first, and it came directly from 20th Century Fox. I don't know how he got it, all the details, but he got it. And so what happened was we were actually watching Star Wars every day when Star Wars wasn't in the theaters anymore. So we would come home from school and would just watch it over and over and over and over again. So that's when I started wondering. I said, what are about these characters in the background? And so that kind of opened my, I was just wondering. And then finally they released a book and I could read about these characters. So as I was developing the series, I knew that if anyone could tell me anything, I knew for sure it was George Lucas. Of course, I didn't know at the time it was a far reach, but I didn't know. I mean, I figured, hey, he did it and he knows what he's doing. Go ask him and maybe he can tell me what to do. And so that's kind of how that. Yeah, but I was nervous, but I already knew I was going to ask him. Yeah. So look, I've got the series and this kind of thing. So what should I do next? That kind of thing.
So would it be safe to say that Star Wars is your all-time favorite movie?
Yeah, no, but yeah, Star Wars is, of course. But I think for me, it's more than just a favorite thing. To me, everything that Lucas has done pretty much can be used as entertainment, but it also can be used as a teaching tool.
Oh, absolutely.
You know,
I mean, he was doing stuff back in the 70s that was like blowing. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Look. I mean, that was, how many years ago was that?
Exactly.
Like, come on.
Exactly. And so for me, it became more like a learning tool. Like, okay, if this character, if you have one character that can have a backstory and that story can continue on and run parallel to maybe a main character in the Star Wars universe.
Yeah.
Then I look at it that way and I think, hey, maybe that's something I should look at. You know, I mean, I've got these. At that time, I had 12 characters, and all those characters were supporting kind of two main characters, just for that. And I thought about, well, you know, they've got to have a backstory.
Yeah.
So let me write the backstory. And so I continue to do that. Now we have over 18 novels mapped out, 17 more novels mapped out, and all kinds of short stories. And now I have over 150 characters. So now it's just the point of taking the time to actually, finish the books and get them published and whatnot.
So back to Ellisbeetle Entertainment then.
Okay.
Do you have any of your books published? Can people listening purchase any of them?
Yeah, I do. There's one book out. It's called Cerulean's Blue Dreams Rain to Tears. And that's the first book. And it wasn't planned that way, but when I wrote the book, I knew there was a backstory, but I didn't have the backstory yet. And I knew I kind of had an idea where I wanted to go. As time went forward, now I've got a huge backstory, so now I have to kind of do that catch up. So yes, Cerulean's Blue Dreams Rain to Tears. It's available on Amazon. If you Google it,
like in a published form, or is it like an ebook?
It's an ebook and also
published form.
Published form, yeah.
Okay.
So it's both. They're both available.
What about any local bookstores at all in here in Salt Lake area? Or
no, that I'm glad you brought that up. There's this. I have this. It's weird. Utah tends to have this mentality of being behind everything else that's like going on, as far as some of the people who own businesses and, they're a little bit older and they have this old mentality and they like to hold on to the old business models. I figured out a long time ago, before it became, real prevalent, that I could see that the internet was going to be a major component in selling everything that you did. In 2002, I was able to secure distribution. I wasn't a company, I wasn't a label, but I read some books. I read about Master P going to get his own distribution. And so I figured, hey, well, if this other person can go get distribution from a distributor and they're, worldwide, why can't I?
Yeah.
And so
that's the internet's beautiful like that. I mean,
yeah, and digital downloads. It was digital music and everything was in its infancy. But I could see that as things were moving forward, I said, look, here I don't have, where if I had approached a record company, they might say, well, no, they might turn you down, or they might sign you and you do well, or they may sign you and shelf you. But with this, I can be everything. And I don't have to be with a major label, that kind of thing. So here I was, a guy in my apartment. In fact, I was living right down the road when I did my first album. And so I recorded it and I did everything. And then I released it. And I went to Barnes & Noble and boom, there it was. Just right there with everyone else's. If you typed in my name, there it was. If I typed in the Beatles, you scroll through and there it was. So I figured out real quick. I said, look, why am I going to go to deal with a record company when I can?
So can you still get it at Barnes & Noble then?
Yeah, well, that's another story.
Oh, another story. Sorry.
But no, I had to switch distributors.
Okay. And
through the process of switching distribution companies, one of my albums got leaked early. And so, but I'm under non-disclosure, so I can't say any names. But it got leaked early, so I decided to switch distribution. So I pulled everything from one distributor, and now I'm with another distributor, and we're in the process of re-releasing my older music and then also new music as well.
What about your books, though?
The books, yeah, the books are still there. Well, initially, the first book that I did through iUniverse.
Uh-huh.
And well, this is something I always do. So I figured out how the system works. Well, if iUniverse has distribution through Ingram, or if iUniverse can get a book to Amazon or Barnes & Noble or any of the other retailers, well, how did they get it? So that's my thought process. Well, how did your company get it? Well, so I went through the process and I just kept extracting information with like every phone call, the whole process. And then pretty soon I said, you know what, why would I go through another company or even another publisher, why not become a publisher
yourself?
Yeah, and become a bona fide publisher where I can publish through Ingham or whatever. And went through the process, and now we're a publisher.
Excellent. Who do you? I mean, do you have any other authors? Who are some of the artists and bands on that you're working with now?
Ellisbeetle Entertainment is an entertainment company. So it's more or less like a holding from our house, more or less. So there is a publishing division, and then there's of course the audiobook thing, but that also deals with publishing, with the books and whatnot.
Yeah.
And then you also have you have music, that kind of thing. And so there's no real barriers with the way that we view things. One of the concepts that we came up with is it's called it's a genre, which we kept running into problems where my music they couldn't place it anywhere. They said, "Oh, is your music children's music?" Yeah, but it doesn't sound like children's music because it doesn't sound infant. It didn't sound like it's not for infants or 5-year-olds or 3-year-olds or whatever. And it was like, well, it is for them. These kids. If you play it for a kid and they listen to it, they'll like it. But other people would say, well, no, that's not children's music because it's too involved. There's too much music going on. Kids can't understand it. And it was weird because kids can understand it, a lot of my music, a lot better than the adults, that kind of thing. So I forgot what I was talking about.
You were talking about the musicians.
Conceptual agnostic.
On your label.
Yeah, so we created this genre called conceptual agnostic compositions. And within that, it encompasses everything. Like there are no rules or regulations to the genre. So that genre you could come up with a form of dance and it fits. You can come up with a new way of doing music and it fits. So what happens is if it doesn't matter what writing style you have or what style of music that you have, it doesn't really make a difference. With Ellisbeetle Entertainment, it fits. So let's say that if you were a hip hop artist, okay, and you play guitar, and let's say you did like 5 hip hop albums, and then you came to me and said, as a company, you came to me and said, hey, I want to do a rock and roll album. We'd say, okay, do a rock and roll album. Because we don't see barriers. We don't see a world that has barriers or a cap or anything like that. We see things as very open and very flowing. It flows and it's very lucid. And so that's the way we view it. That's the way the company's set up. So we do business. We do business very differently than I don't know of any other company that kind of has that business model where the artist has complete artistic freedom to do whatever they want to do. And so some people may say, well, their rock and roll album, your rock and roll album is not any good, but your hip hop stuff is. Well, then it becomes the job of the company to be instrumental in helping you do a good rock and roll album. And
so who do you have any artists that you're working with now or?
So I have, I'll just kind of go down the list. We just recently signed an artist by the name of Phyllis Cypher, and he's out of the San Jose area, out of California. He's a hip hop artist, but he's much more than that. He also produces music. He also composes music. He's an actor. He's a voice actor. So he has all these things that he's able to do. And so him being with Ellisbeetle Entertainment is a really good fit because we don't, he can go at, if he's got an acting thing that has got an acting gig that's going on, then it's fine. He can go and do the acting thing because it also builds his
his resume,
and stuff, that kind of thing. And then we recently signed another person who he's a DJ. His name is Leo. They call him Leo the Lion Brown, and he's worked in the music industry for a really long time, and he's also a DJ. And so we recently signed him. So we brought him on as a music business consultant / DJ. So he's also an artist. Another person that we signed who's a friend I grew up with. His name is Elliot Davis. He's a guitarist. And then he's multi-talented as well. He can write, sing, and of course play his behind off. So another local jazz artist a lot of people know is Steve Pfluger. And
the name rings a bell,
yeah. And so I recently signed him on with Ellisbeetle Entertainment as well. And so with him, you got a player and you got a person who's got this huge, he used to, in the 90s, he was teaching me. And so now I am where I am. Of course, he's, he keeps progressing, but, the things that he can do, the list is, it's a very long list. And I'm looking at a couple of other artists. I'm in the process of kind of talking with them, but we're still in the non-disclosure type of thing.
Absolutely. Any other books, any other authors you're working with? Or
Clancy Metzger is the person who co-wrote Blue Dreams Rain to Tears with me. Another lady that, which is the next novelist in the editing stage. Her name is Beatrice Newman. She doesn't live here locally though. Her name is Beatrice Newman. And then my partner, but not in crime. I don't want to say partner in crime because someone might take that as reality, but her name is Michelle Gaylord, and she's probably going to be writing for the duration of the series throughout because she has all the information, like the background stories, and and she's also part of creating the different characters for the series and different things next year. So people can go on to your website, Ellisbeetle. It's ellisbeetle.com, right?
Yes.
Is
a website. Probably find out all the information about.
Yeah, they can find. Yeah, it's a lot of information, and but it's all there. I mean, all the artists are there, and we're in the process of also upgrading the website. Not upgrading, but adding more content to the website with more people and music and different things of that nature.
And you might have mentioned it in the beginning. Is there any meaning behind the name?
Oh, Ellisbeetle?
Yeah.
Yeah, Ellisbeetle is the main character from the series.
Okay. And I think you said,
he's the main character from the series, and I'm actually, if you in the way the story was, I was telling the story was I was telling my son a story about this beetle and his relationship with this little kid, kind of thing. So it was a kind of a parallel storyline I was telling my son about. So of course, Lars is one of the characters in the series, and Ellisbeetle, which is who I am, is one of the main characters in the series, that kind of thing. So, but yeah, so that's, the character was Ellisbeetle. It wasn't until later on when I started looking at actually becoming a company, I figured out that I needed to become a company because there were certain things I would be able to do as a company, as presenting myself business-wise and different things of that nature. And so I called it Ellisbeetle Entertainment. So
it's a catchy name.
Yeah.
It's catchy, and I like it. It's like, well, what is that? Make you wonder,
exactly. And that's the whole point of it. It's like, what is the Ellisbeetle? Or
it's kind of intriguing. It's so many times people name their label or band or this or that, and it's like you could tell what it is based off the name. It's like, well, what is this Ellisbeetle?
Yeah,
thing,
and the other thing, as I wanted to, like I said, I wanted to do a lot more than just, at that time, I wanted to do a lot more than just music or just books. And so I had to look at it in a very wide thing. So setting up the company and coming up with a concept of the company and putting it into fruition, I had to look at it in a very wide spectrum. Like, okay, if I want to do music, I don't want to have to start another company.
Yeah, just kind of keep it all under
one roof, that kind of thing. Yeah.
And you do. I was looking at your website earlier, like tour management, or is that something you want to get into?
No. We, like I said, we just recently became a record label, but the people that we've signed, like with Leo Brown, and of course Michelle Gaylord, who is an event planner and whatnot. We now have the team put together.
To be able to book some tours.
To be able to do that. And so we're planning some pretty major things. I know that I've been through a lot of ups and downs and dealing with some of the people here in Utah, but the good side is that this is my home. Mm-hmm. So I'm cool with that. And now we're in a position where we can actually do things that haven't been done before. And artistically, so we're now in the process of creating an environment and becoming an asset to the artistic environment here in the city and also the state. So there's some things that we're doing to actually. In times past, there were things that I wanted to do, but there was always like a committee of people. And sometimes someone might be someone on the committee that didn't like someone in my family. It would come out later on. They didn't like my family. Was like, nah, whatever. And or it could be a situation where sometimes we would run into a race problem. And, and I would find out later on that was the case. Yeah. So now that we're in this position, we don't have to do business based on any prejudices.
Nice.
Yeah. And so I can't talk about it now, but there are some pretty major things.
Well, maybe down the road, in a few months, bring you back on and we can talk about, talk about more stuff.
Yeah. And I might be able to bring one of the individuals with me to talk about it.
That'd be great.
Yeah. But we believe in preservation of the historical processes, in like music and whatnot. And we also believe in the future as well. And so, though, we can't forget the past, things that have already happened musically, because, sometimes we get the luxury of having someone who was around when certain genres of music started.
Yeah.
Okay.
I gotcha.
We get the luxury of being able to interact with them. But we also have to remember that music is constantly moving forward. And so we want to be a part of that.
And have you done any local events then yet, or had not yet?
Yeah. Well, I've been playing around town for years.
Yeah.
Sometimes I take time off when I need to do something business wise, and I kind of start up again. But now we're actually starting up again playing. Last night we played.
What's the name of your band, by the way?
The name of the jam band.
Okay.
Is Lucid Oracle.
Okay.
Which is more like a jam band type of thing. There's no, like I said, there isn't necessarily one genre that we play over another one. It's just more kind of an eclectic kind of style of playing, but it's heavily based upon improvisation as well. As far as the jazz thing is concerned, it's called Tarindu Jazz. So sometimes, depending on what we're doing, sometimes it's a trio, sometimes it's a quartet.
I gotcha.
So yeah, it depends on the genre that we're actually playing. So, that kind of, but the main thing that we're focusing around is Lucid Oracle. And Lucid Oracle, we're structuring it so we're able to play for Phyllis Cypher. Here soon, we'll be able to play for him. And then, of course, if we want to, we can turn around and go play a jazz gig too if we need to. But the Lucid Oracle is right now, I think that it's the most progressive style of music that's readily available to us right now as we move forward. Yeah.
So living in Salt Lake all of these years that you've lived here, what are some of your favorite things about living in the area? I mean, just in general. It
is still pretty here, but that pollution that comes through twice a year.
It's horrible this year.
Yeah, that's a major, that's a major kick in the knee. But the things I enjoy here, it's pretty here. Generally, overall, people are a lot, they're a lot more friendly than other places. But I think the main thing is because it's isolated here. Like, a lot of people don't realize that Utah alone by itself, there's a level of isolation. Branford had mentioned it to me, and I didn't get it at the time. He said, Salt Lake's a cool place. Like, why would you want to move? It's a cool place.
Yeah.
You can make some good music here. I don't want to stay here. I'm going to New York. I'm going to LA. Well, the isolation of being kind of isolated, because the main thing here musically that you will find from a certain level of, if you go back to when I was born up until later on, but the main thing, you'll find a big classical influence, and then you have the Mormon Tabernacle Choir. Those are two main things that people know.
Or Donny Osmond or
something like that. Yeah. So that's the main thing they know. Well, the thing about that can be a good thing or a bad thing. And the good thing, and this is one of the main things I like about it, is because when I drive down the street, it's not like driving down the street in Philadelphia or New York or in some other major city. Like, I'm because I play by ear, and I also read that kind of thing too, but I am also a victim of the environment. So if I'm going down the street and I'm hearing all these different kinds of sounds of music going on, well, then I'm probably going to regurgitate that at some point. But if you go outside here in Utah most of the time, what do you hear? You don't hear a lot of difference because you don't have it's not really diverse here like it is in New York or Philadelphia.
It's getting there, though.
It's getting there.
But you are correct in that way.
So that isolation is a good thing because it forces me to find my own path. Like, what am I going to do musically? I can listen to the internet, of course, and I can listen to Spotify and whatnot. But if I cut that off, then I'm kind of isolated. And so that's really helped me with creating the series, Cerulidans, creating that series. It's also helped me with, coming up with other intellectual property that we can use for, just other stories that we have, and also musically. So I think that's the main thing that I like the most, is because I feel like when I go to New York, I pick up the vibe. Like, I pick it up. And if you were to send me to New York today and then I was to go, I don't know, to some other state with, that same day and play, then I would probably be playing more with more of a New York kind of vibe. But being here, you just kind of have to come up with your own.
Do you think, like in Salt Lake, as versus like say New York or LA or something, you have a chance to stick out a little bit more too, and people recognize you and notice you a little? That's one thing I find. I was just wondering if you've noticed the same thing, like if you were to go to New York and try to be a jazz band, well, there's a million of them already.
Well, I think a lot of it is based upon, there's a million of them, that kind of thing in New York. But I think that when you start to move in a direction that is different, you're going to get noticed. For me, being noticed here is the first thing they see is my color. So there's a huge thing that I have to deal with. As soon as they see me, they go, "Oh, he's black. So, hey, so you're a musician? Yeah. So you're a rapper?" Just instantaneously. Yeah, you're a rapper. That, huh? Yeah, yo. They're into all this. And I'm just, well, what do you do? I play bass. And they're like, "Oh, yeah. So how do you rap and play bass?" So it's that thing. So for me, sticking out, it's color. So that kind of thing. But musically, I think we played at the Submerged Art Festival last night. And I think this is the first time that last night that we felt that people didn't necessarily see us based upon color. They saw us based upon what we're doing musically. They see you as musicians. Yeah, they see us as that, which is the way it should be. Mm-hmm. But like I said, it's a different crowd of people. It wasn't like playing at Tuscany and that crowd. Because we played at Tuscany for a while, and so that's a totally different crowd. They just totally think one way. But it's like I said, it's the social playground is changing because there's a new mindset, and we're very excited about that new mindset. Here in Salt Lake City, you're finding very new mindset. And then the thing is, there's so much talent here. People say, "Oh, New York or LA and that thing or whatever," but what they don't realize is there is so much untapped talent here that people don't necessarily pay attention to because it's Utah. Oh, absolutely. And that's even one thing I'm trying to, with this project here, with this show and podcast, is to show people what's out there and that it's not your everyday Donny Osmond, Mormon, Tabernacle Choir. And there's a lot of diversity here. I agree, because one of the problems that Utahns have is they have all this talent here, and yet they're afraid to do anything, for starters. Yeah, well, and then so here's an example. So we're planning to do some dates or some concerts here or whatever, and the person that we were talking to, when they talked to the person that lived in California, they had all the respect in the world. But then when my name came up, it was like, well, where is he from? Well, he's from Utah. Well, then suddenly there was no respect at all. Really? Just almost immediately. So Utahns actually are it's kind of like they cut their nose off to spite their face. They have all this talent here, which makes this city artistically a very powerful environment. But there's this mentality of, oh, you're local, so you're not good because you're from Utah. Where on the flip side, when people are talking about, when they say, oh, well, where's he from? He's from Utah. Well, what music's going on out in Utah? Like, who's out there? And so, but there's a lot of untapped talent here, like just extremely talented people, writers, musicians, artists. You just go on and on. They're extremely talented here, but it's a problem because Utahns don't necessarily respect what they have. Ellisbeetle Entertainment does respect it, and we know that it's there, and we know that it's untapped. And so that's why the company is now moving into a position to be able to be a force to be reckoned with. Like for us, we have people outside of the state that we're dealing with, and the roster's growing, and the people that are available to us is growing. We have people that are available to us that no one else has in Utah. Yeah, that kind of thing. We're talking about larger names that we have like readily available to us, like we could just make a phone call, and they don't have that. So we're positioning ourselves that when we find local artists here that have that, it doesn't matter what they do, but if we find them or they find us, and we can kind of come up with a way to work together, then we're up and running. And if it's a musician, we have the distribution. There's no reason why would I have the distribution and take the time to set it up and then not allow someone else to have access to that.
Yeah.
Because I've been on the other side of the coin.
Yeah.
And so same thing with books and the same thing with,
So if any local authors or musicians are listening, hey, reach out.
Yeah, I mean, definitely contact us. I mean, especially right now we're focusing on the music end of things. So we're focusing on the music end of things, but right now we're in a situation where we have so much work that we don't have enough time in the day
to do it all.
To do it all. So, we're in the process of trying to figure out a way to find some interns and different things of that nature. If there's people that want to, we have a lot of information as far as blogging and that kind of thing. If there's some bloggers out there that want to, get in and do some writing about some pretty cool stuff, we can do that. And we're always looking for writers. Like I said, we don't fall into the normal structure of things. We have a totally different mindset. So we're looking for certain types of people to deal with. And it's kind of hard to explain that, but we when we find them and when they find us, we know them pretty much through, it could be a 15, 20-minute conversation. We know real quick if they're the right fit for us.
Right fit for Ellisbeetle.
Yeah.
Any favorite local restaurants or anything that you like? Any places that you frequent a lot?
Pig in a jelly jar.
Isn't that great?
Oh man,
best chicken and waffles, right?
Oh man, it's crazy, man.
Yeah,
it's crazy. It's weird because every Sunday morning we get up and it's like a pig in a jelly jar.
Let's do it.
Right? Yeah. And so sometimes we have the time to go, but then sometimes we don't. But yeah, I love that place. And then right now, that's the one on the list.
That's the one on the. And I know how it is. People ask me the same thing, and I'm like, oh, my mind goes blank.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm always curious.
Yeah, the vibe there. We love the vibe there. We love the food there.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because you can go to like some high end restaurants here. The service might be cool, but the attitude might be bad. But pig in a jelly jar, hey, I'm all for that. So if you haven't been,
go there.
Yeah, you need to check it out.
Yeah,
check it out. If you got to wait a little bit, it's worth the wait for sure.
Where do you think you would be if music and art and all that would have never been introduced to your life? I mean, since it appears to be such a big part of your life.
Yeah, it is. But I would. I mean, I guess I'd probably mobbed up or in prison.
Or in prison, huh?
Yeah. Probably mobbed up or in prison.
It's amazing how much music and art and literature, I mean, consuming yourself with those, it could save your life, really.
Well, yeah. Well, the thing is that when someone treats me bad or someone does something wrong to me, I go through a process of dealing with that, but I end up regurgitating it artistically. Speaking of which, Lucid Oracle, we're in the process of working on an album right now called The Bible Belt. Okay. And the Bible Belt is about our childhood. And we went through some pretty horrible things during our childhood, not just based upon living here with the diversity issues, but we also dealt with some other things as children that was horrible. Yeah. And so we're going through the process of trying to create a scenario where we can deal with that, but we're channeling that artistically so we can kind of deal with that kind of thing. So, I mean, I'm sure when we get to the point of releasing that album, I'd like to come back and talk to you about it because I think that's.
Oh, I'd love to.
That'll fill a whole show.
I'd love to bring you back on, and as people follow the episodes. Who are some of your favorite musicians now? I mean, just all time. I mean, I'm not talking even on a local level. What kind of music you enjoying these days? Like who do you find yourself listening to in the car?
Jeez, I listen. Gosh, so
your mind going blank.
No, not real. Well, I listen to a lot of. It's kind of wide range. So I listen to. Sometimes listen to the Doobie Brothers.
Love the Doobie Brothers.
So listen to Doobie Brothers. Sometimes I'm listening to. I think it's Wayne Krantz, who's a guitar player, but that kind of thing. Then sometimes I find new people. I can't think of their name. Hold for a moment so I can tell you their names.
Oh no, that's all right. We'll
yeah, but I'm always finding new people to listen to. But right now, Nowhere for sure.
Nowhere.
Yes, it's KNOWER. There used to be Louis Cole and Genevieve Artadi. It was what they called themselves before. They just changed the name to Nowhere, and they're out of California. And the music that they're putting out. In fact, we're trying to get into a situation where we can have them come here and perform. But the music's incredible. So if you get a chance, go on YouTube and look for Nowhere, KNOWER. And if you yeah, if you check that out, you definitely. So I'm listening to them a lot. Of course, I'm listening to a lot of Phyllis Cypher's music because we're planning on playing live, having a live band with him as well, and so we'll be prepared for that. So I'm enjoying Phyllis Cypher a whole lot, and of course, I listen to people that a lot of people like if it's hip hop. Of course, Eric B and Rakim, some of the older stuff, and Q-Tip, it just depends.
Just a lot of little of everything.
Yeah, there's rock in there. I mean, sometimes I enjoy listening to solo tuba players.
Yeah.
It's like there's just blowing solo, and I'll listen to that for a long time. And then sometimes it's Indian music, Fatah, Ali Khan, I listen to them, and so, yeah, there's a lot of people that I...
With summer right around the corner, anything you're excited about, looking forward to? I mean, I know a lot of us are excited to see the snow melted or melting still off the mountains, It's always an exciting, lively time here in Salt Lake City.
I'm excited because of the position that we're in artistically. I'm excited for the summer because... now with the snow being gone and spring coming, there's like it's like a rebirth kind of thing for us. It's a rebirth, and so I'm excited because I'm gonna, now that the summer's here and people are gonna be out and about a little bit and it's not so cold and snow or whatever, and the pollution's not
you could breathe a little bit better.
So we get an opportunity to actually go out. Last night, there's some people that I was trying to catch up with online. Never had the opportunity to catch up with them, and we were playing at the Submerge Art Festival, and I ran right into them, and I was able to tell them what was going on with our company, find out what's going on with their company, and kind of start making some magic with that already. So I think the summer is I'm looking forward to the fact of being able to move around, meet new people, and also talk with some other businesses about some of the things that we're doing, and also collaborating and helping each other where we may not have the time to do things and that's what they do, then and kind of vice versa.
Well, I'd love to, if any local people that you're working with, musicians, writers, whatever, I'd love to bring them on the show.
Yeah, well,
I'd love to sit and talk with them and even bring you back in and do, have a little discussion or something.
I think that some of with the people that we're working with here locally, and the things that we're doing, not only are we doing, some pretty major things, well, we're also working together. Yeah. So this is kind of like a collective almost. And so, we'll definitely have to come back.
I'd love to do anything and everything to help you out and to I mean, that even leads me. I thank you so much for emailing me and reaching out. I tell people that all the time. I'm like, just drop me an email. I think people are afraid to reach out here.
I wouldn't sometimes, like people or companies will say, hey, just contact us. Yeah. And then when you do, they're like, no. Yeah. So they kind of wave you out. There are a lot of people that are used to that. I expected that. I expected that I would get blown off, And so not that because you're just that type of person. Because that's what I'm used to. That's kind of like the old guard mentality.
Well, it is hard to get to everybody. It really is, I'm sure. And the same thing on my end. I apologize. Sometimes it takes me a little bit of time to get back. In March was a crazy month for me. I'm trying to kind of get my bearings straight on for April. And so, if you're listening and you've emailed me and just give me a little bit of time, I will get back with you,
And one of the important things about what you're doing is with the podcast is, of course, you're allowing people to come in and talk about what's going on in Utah, different things of that nature. But the most important thing about you is the fact that you don't have a certain line of, oh, well, you're this type of person, so you can't be on my show, or you're that type of person, or you're this type of person, you can be on my show. Yeah, I'm listening to your podcast. You kind of...
I try to get it on.
Yeah, man. And I think I know you're going to be very successful. Well, it's just a matter of time. It's just a matter of time before...
Well, I think a lot of people are still even learning how to listen to these things. You know what I mean? How to listen to a podcast. And, I don't know if you listen to any podcasts at all. It's amazing how many, I have to say, well, it's an online radio show, and well, you can subscribe through your iPhone or your Android or whatever. And I mean, I cannot tell people enough, especially if this is the first podcast, there are tons of them out there and about any subject you want. And that's what's awesome about it. self-help comedy.
Yeah, and think about so think about that. And if you was to go back in time a little ways, and you had to get on the radio, or you weren't going to get heard. Yeah. Now you can create your own world. Yeah. Pretty much. And so I anticipate that what you're doing is going to grow tremendously.
Well, thank you.
Yeah,
I hope so. I'm plugging away. Man.
As long as you're plugging away, I do see that. I do see it growing and becoming much larger than anybody anticipates.
I hope so.
So I can kind of see on the route that you're taking, because it's just a matter of time before you start interviewing people that no one would ever guess that you'd ever interview. And Ellisbeetle Entertainment you're going to be the go-to person that we go to.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, you're going to be the go-to person that we go to. So some of these people that we're dealing with that are pretty major on the scale, we're going to come to you and see if we can get them on your show.
I appreciate that. Well, thank you. Anything else you want to add before we close out here, or anything that maybe we didn't touch on that you want to touch on?
I just want to let everyone know that, Ellisbeetle Entertainment, even though we're a company and we do all these different things, just want to let you know that we're not in a situation of not being approachable. We are very approachable. It may not seem like it. Some people get very intimidated when they see me. Some people say, "Man, you look so mean." I'm not mean.
Well, I was nervous when I first.
But I just want to let you know that we are approachable, and if you have, if you're working on something artistically and you're on your A game, and you need a little help along the way, feel free to contact us and to see what we can do. But I just want to give out the love.
I appreciate, and again, your contact information. Are you on Facebook?
I'm on Facebook. Just look up Sam Cosby. Okay, and I'm the guy that's holding the bass.
I didn't know if there was like an Ellisbeetle Facebook or fan page.
There is an Ellisbeetle Entertainment fan page. Okay. Yeah, so you can go there too.
And I'll try to get the links and I try to include those in the show notes. So the Ellisbeetle.com. Yeah. Any other social media outlets that you use? Do you use Twitter at all, or no?
Yeah, I use Twitter, but if you just go to Ellisbeetle.com,
that'll have it all.
Then you'll have it all there. But yeah, make sure you check out the Cypher.com. That's Phyllis Cypher. He's got an album that's getting ready to get released, and of course we're going to be having him come here to Utah and perform, and that's going to be a big deal because he's he's pretty major he's a pretty major MC. So I think it'll be real fun.
Well, awesome. I appreciate you coming on the show, Sam. I learned a lot. I mean, honestly, I didn't even know about you before till I sat down here and talked with you. Yeah. Anything else before we?
No, I just want to say thanks for having me. I appreciate it, and I'm sure we'll get together and talk again.
You bet. Many thanks goes out to Sam Cosby with Ellisbeetle Entertainment for coming on the show and sharing his story with the rest of you guys. Hey, thanks again for listening to the I Am Salt Lake podcast. Head on over to iamsaltlake.com to check out the show notes for episode 58. That way you can get in touch with Ellisbeetle Entertainment. Hey, a few ways you can help out the show. Any ways you can help out is much appreciated. You can head on over to I Am Salt Lake, and about halfway down the website, there's a donate button. You can kick over a few dollars. Helps keep the podcast alive, helps keep it going, and helps keep the show alive. Also, by leaving us an iTunes review in iTunes, really helps out boosting the ratings by leaving us a 5-star review. And also love to hear what you think of the show. Give us a thumbs up in Stitcher Radio if that's the way you listen to the show. Also by sharing with your friends and family in any social media platforms, Twitter, Facebook, Tumblr, any of those sites that you use. Feel free to share the podcast that way, and that way is much appreciated. Also, leave us a comment on iamsaltlake.com on any of your favorite episodes. Love to hear from my listeners that way as well. Again, like I mentioned, the voicemail line is always open, 385-202-5926. Give me a call. Tell me what you think of the show. Also, if you know anybody or if you'd like to be a guest on the show, drop me an email, iamsaltlake@gmail.com. That's going to do it. My name is Chris Hollifield. Until next time, thank you so much for listening to the I Am Salt Lake podcast.